Okay, welcome SODC staff, councillors to SODC Scrutiny Committee meeting this evening. For anybody watching the meeting on YouTube, I'm Councillor Ken Arler and I will be chairing the meeting. Item 1 on the agenda are Chair's announcements. We all know where the emergency exit is. Can I request that you either turn off your mobile phones or put them on mute? Thank you. Item 2, apologies for absent and substitutes. Stephen?
Thank you, Chair. We've had apologies from Councillor Turner with Councillor Cooper substituting, and apologies from Councillor Graham with Councillor Sadler substituting. And Councillor Barlow is not in the meeting room, but I can see him on the screen, so he'll be addressing the committee remotely.
Okay, thank you. Item 3, to adopt as a correct record the committee minutes of the 12th of June. I'll take these and the confidential minutes if I can do. I'll take them both together unless anybody's going to make any comments on the confidential minutes. Can I take them all together?
Yep.
Yeah, all in favour?
Yeah.
Okay, that's carried. Thank you. Item 4, declarations of interest. I promise not to mention suits, dresses, glasses, or whatever. Does anybody wish to declare interest on?
Does it look like we've got
Does anybody wish to declare anything this evening? No, I see nothing. Thank you. Item 5, urgent business and Chair's announcement. I have no urgent business to mention. Item 6, public participation. There are no members of the public here this evening. Item 7, the work schedule for scrutiny. These are on pages 10 and 12. Does anybody like to comment on those 3? Okay, we're okay with that? All in favour of those?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Item 8 is the corporate plan performance report for 2023 to 24, which is on pages 13 to 44 of your agenda. The committee is asked to review and make a comment. So would you like to address us, Sam, Casey, Rahab?
I would, thank you. Unfortunately, as soon as I walked in here, my computer restarted and now not connected. So I've got what I was going to say, but I don't have the plan, or I can look at David's screen. Okay. So yes, thank you. So this performance report, as you know, is for the financial year 2023-24, and is in effect one of the last complete year reports, performance reports for the corporate plan 2020 to 24. Of the 40 or so projects in the report, there are very few. I think notice there are a few that are not green. There are 5 that are amber and none that are red. And I think this is a great reflection of the focus of the council over the last 4 years on ensuring our council policies are seen through to implementation. They're not just words and wishes on a page. My focus now is to the next 4-year plan, and the work has already started. I'm sure you know, with the consultation on the proposals for the way ahead, as we're calling it. So hearing what you as Scrutiny have to say about this report will, I hope, be important in the formulation of that plan and informing the how we go about and progress that plan, and how at that plan the future corporate plan will be reported and monitored. And there's been lots of progress and learnings over the 4 years of reporting. So we're really looking here at the report itself, but I'm thinking of the format of the report and how we report it. And we want to ensure that we as councillors, cabinet and councillors, are receiving relevant, timely, and useful reports, at the same time ensuring that officers' time is mostly spent on delivering projects rather than reporting to us on them. So ensuring that balance is the key thing, and I hope I'll get some information from you tonight on that if you wish. So I welcome any thoughts, recommendations you have. I won't go any further, and welcome any questions too.
We have Tim online as well. Tim, would you like to make any comments at all before I open up to the committee?
Hi, good evening, committee. Good evening, chair. No further comments to make. So absolutely back everything that Sam said. So yeah, ready for any questions that the committee may have about the report. Thank you.
Looks a beautiful day there.
Sending it over.
We'll go around this way first. Councillor Walden.
Chair, can I just ask, do you want questions on all the themes at once, or do you want to go theme by theme?
How many questions have you got?
3.
Go on, we'll take them all together.
Okay, so on theme 1, obviously the issue which I noted about weekly, the flooding protection of weekly is in there, which is good. The general open question about what about other locations, especially in light of the weather this week. On theme 3, with regard to the let it be issue, there's been lots of issues with past OCC failures to maintain verges. So how can we maintain public support for things like No Mow May in the sort of when actually the public are seeing not some things they really don't want to see as a result?
Let's just answer one at a time, otherwise I'll get lost. So what was the first one again?
So
That was
the first one was
yeah.
Obviously with regard to flooding, you note the work that's being done at Weekly,
Yeah.
but what about other locations and how do we ensure we're doing the right things across the district to protect as many people as possible from flooding?
I think can you respond to that?
Yes, yeah, I think it's a really timely question. It's a question that we've been talking about in cabinet actually, about how bringing that into the corporate plan, how we would for the future. It's really crucial because we know that more and more severe weather events are going to happen, and it's all about wetness really around in Britain. So I think it's really important. And I want to bring it in under restoring the natural world. If you remember in the consultation for the way ahead, we were keeping those same themes, restoring the natural world and climate change, you know, obviously interconnected, and then bringing in things like flooding, so things that are particularly relevant in this area. As regards to the performance report on any flooding projects, the weekly one was the ones that stood out, and I'd have to hand over to the relevant cabinet member on that specific if there are any others that we're working on. But obviously with something like that, it's very clear it's about partnership working, isn't it? Working with OCC and the parish councils. But I think you're absolutely right in taking that as an important theme. Is something that we intend to do.
Thank you. Want to make a comment?
Yeah, just quickly. Obviously, the county council is the flood authority, and they come up with flood alleviation works. We contract to do some of that work, but in terms of the long-term planning of it, that goes through the local plan and saying, you know, where do we build houses, where do we have to have suds or whatever. The thing that is really timely is the fact that no amount of flood alleviation can cope with a storm that would brought as much water as, I think it was the worst one in 56 years, was what I heard from one source. So yes, we can. There are lots of nice schemes that will slow the flow or will absorb water to some extent, but that won't get us past the actual need to plan where we build houses and where it's likely to flood. The particular thing that happened in my ward was a Thames water pump broke. And so you can have all the planning that you like, but if a pump breaks, you then get flooding. So there are schemes, and the rewilding should absorb more water, should slow the flow. But these are incremental effects on flooding rather than an answer to the flooding problem.
Next one.
It was on theme the 3 climate emergency. Obviously on the let it be thing about the No Mow May, I think there is a potential loss of support in the community because of particularly the OCCs. They haven't been able to cut verges to the same extent that has happened previously. So what can we do to maintain public support for that, which I'm very much in favour of continuing with it. But yeah, there is that potential for a loss of public support there.
Yeah, this is not my portfolio. I think it is around communications, and my ward is a really good example because the Lady Grove Estate has areas of land that are owned by the district council, where I think we've done it really well, in that we keep the grass short around the paths, but then we have areas that are designated for rewilding, and are kept within that area. There are other areas that are run by the town council who basically do keep most of it short because it's a playing field. And then you have the county who are a bit random, let's face it. And so what a lot of parishes are doing is knowing locally where the sensitive areas are, and they are doing further work. But it's about communication and being sensitive to the local area as to which areas are okay to rewild, and which areas need to be kept short, because that's a play area where kids kick a football around, and so it needs to be suitable. We will get it wrong. I think that the first thing to say is we will get it wrong, and I think on our estate we got it wrong the first year. There were places that we let to grow wild that shouldn't have, and we cut them back better this year. So I think it's a learning and an incremental exercise, but you're right, we do need to do a lot of communicating as to why this area is like this, and why we're doing it. But you also need to be a bit robust as well, because we do have a natural emergency in terms of invertebrates, and sometimes you do have to kick back. We have some residents who would like to live within the Truman Show, and have nice plastic lawns and nice straight lines. For every one of those complaints, I also get complaints from people who say, you know, this ought to be a bit wilder here. So again, it's suck it and see.
I'm the old school, so let's leave it there.
Yeah.
The last question.
The third one was on theme 4. Thank you, Chair, for letting me put all these together.
That's fine.
How can we help our communities better realise social value? As Councillor Carl and I were at a different powerhouse meeting a couple of weeks ago, and one of the things that some of the donors have expressed is that actually they're willing to donate time in terms of their time and their input, whatever, but not in terms of cash. So there's quite a lot of people out there who have got time within their budgets, and they've got a requirement to actually add to social value. But how can we help them do that within a sort of a doing phase rather than simply giving money? Any thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, I'd say that one of the redirections for the economic development team has been much more working on the grassroots levels, working with small, medium enterprises, and that's the direction we've gone, helping parishes and towns and small businesses realise what they can do to help with climate change. That's one of the actions in there, which I think is really important. And part of the procurement strategy looking ahead will be about things like social value, and including that as part of those points, if you like, towards, you know, tenders and stuff like that. So in the round, there's those sort of official things. In terms of what people can do in voluntary groups, I think it's very much about how we work with those voluntary groups and keep things like town and parish council forums and listening both ways. But you know, the specifics of that, I would be really happy to hear from you if you've got any more ideas on the specifics of that. But I think our policy, if I'm right, is, you know, go to the lowest level, talk to people at the lowest level, in the community level. But more specifics than that, I think we'd really like the feedback on that.
I'll come back to you, September.
You don't have to ask a question, but I'm going to go around the table. Councillor Cooper.
Thanks. Well, I'd like to start by congratulating all those concerned that having so many green patches on the plan. I think it's really good that we've got to that stage. My main reservations are with the timeliness of the delivery of some of the activities. We do seem to take rather longer than most people would think we ought to, especially when we've actually decided to do something, to actually put it into practice. And the only other comment I've made is, you know, I do hope that we get ahead as soon as possible with the next version. So we haven't had a sort of vacuum with nothing much happening. It'd be interesting to see if people notice actually.
Well, I think, there are some projects here that are ongoing, so that work's not going to stop because the plan is sort of coming to an end. And as you know, you'll be slightly postponed the next stage of the next council plan because of the importance of focusing on the joint local plan. And of course, there's huge synergies and they feed into one another. So I think that's as on your point of timeliness, I think there's been a lot of work over the last 4 years in getting things right and ensuring that we're not making hasty decisions. But I take your point that we now need to be ensuring that we're more timely. And I think that having timely reports as well is an important part of that. And I think that's what the officers and I are looking in the future to be how to make less burdensome and more timely.
Councillor Khan.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Cooper sort of touched upon it. I'm just going to sort of expand. Question I've got is, what does success look like? And also, Councillor Cooper just, as I say, sort of touched upon it, is how do we get that communicated out to the residents? Because I don't think 99.9% know what a corporate plan or what the vision is. So what does success look like, and how is this going to be communicated to the residents, and how we're going to incorporate that so they know this is something positive?
Well, we do, as you know, we have a comms plan, and one of the themes is about openness and transparency. So, ensuring that we have these meetings online, etc. But I think we do rely a lot on the councillors to go back to their parishes and to their communities and talk about them. I had a lot of feedback over the last couple of years, in particular, about, and when I say lots of feedback, people come to me and talk to me about it. I wouldn't say it's huge numbers of people, but they do say they've noticed a change in the district council's approach. So I think we are getting out there. But you're right, it's always a job. It's always something we should have to be thinking about. And the comms team, I think, are doing a pretty good job. But David is the comms lead.
Yeah. You can never do enough comms until people are annoyed by all the leaflets coming through your door, and then you've probably done too enough. So yeah, people are only there's a sweet spot when people are ready to listen to what you're saying. The problem is you never know when that sweet spot is.
When it's not going right.
Yes. Yeah, people are very keen to tell us when things are not going right. And yeah, I know a good example of that is our waste collection. I get lots of emails from people whose waste bins haven't been collected. But when I look at the statistics, so well over 99% of bins do get collected on time. So, and those 99% plus don't phone me up or send me emails to say, my bin got collected. I tell a lie. During the storm, somebody did email us and say, my bin got collected during the storm. So, yeah, it's trying to find a time when people are ready to listen. And I think the mechanism that we do it is when we talk about any of our projects, or we talk about something that's going well, or talk about something that's not going well, we link it back to which of our themes it relates to. And the more often we talk about those, then people realise that there is actually a strategy behind this, and that we're not just doing however many individual projects.
I was going to say, can you tell me in your own words what success looks like? So when you come back again, we can say, this is what you said, so we can scrutinise, because that's our role. So if you tell us what in your own words success looks like, then at least we've got a record. When you come back again in 6 months' time, you can say, well, you said this.
You said we did. Almost.
Yeah, because that's our role.
Yeah.
We want you to, you put this plan together, it's going to be implemented and things are happening, but our role is to scrutinise.
So when the next council plan goes to scrutiny, for you to look at that, as a draft, that will be a great opportunity, I think, for scrutiny to really dig down and give us very specific feedback on those, and then we can almost do that. We said we did sort of document in relation to how it changes, how it's delivered. And just on your point about communication, and I mean, we have developed that data hub, And I don't expect any residents to go to that data hub because that's not what it's about, is it? It's about residents coming to us. We can then check on that data hub and then feed back to them. So it's just it's a record there that's transparent, that people know, so they can just check those bits of data. So I think a lot of what you're saying might be on there. And I don't go on it a huge amount, but I found it really, really useful when somebody asked me a question. So there's lots of bits of this, I think, that feed into that communication and showing what you want us to do and how we're responding to you.
I think, to be fair, with the amount of green on this report, will show it's fairly successful. If there would have been a lot of red, well, we would then talk about this isn't successful. What are you going to do to improve it?
Can I just ask one more question just on that particular point?
Of course you can.
Who decides that's a green and that's an amber and that's a red? So whose decision is that? Okay, if it was me and I'm in charge of a plan, I'll try and put all of it as green.
Yeah.
So whose judgment call is that?
Okay, so it is the team, the heads of service are deciding that from feedback from the officers all going through, and it does take some time for this performance plan to go through the teams and record it, and then I think it's up to, and I've interrogated it, and I think it's up to you to interrogate it. So when they say where we're up to on some of those actions, I really welcome some of you saying, are you sure this is the case? And how has that happened and how do you know that's happened? But certainly I've gone through it and interrogated some of them, and I know that I've seen some of them happen. So I know they are there. Whether it's amber, whether it's green, whether it's amber, whether it's red, that's something as well that I think should be interrogated and has been, but it is coming from heads of service.
Is there a couple of specifics in there?
No, I just wanted to get an overview.
When you have another good read through it again, maybe there's a couple of specifics that you could get in touch with Sam. Yeah.
Sorry, can I interject just on this particular point? Because obviously I was Sam's predecessor in this role and oversaw how this was put together. And I think one of the things to emphasise is that this is very much part of a hierarchy of reports as well, in that we do still have, we've had all the quarterly reports, which do provide the more specific kind of project narratives for every single, so they're not rag rates in the sense that it's just oh, it's a green or it's a red. You actually get much more of an insight into what's actually being delivered in that period. And I think the challenge of the annual report, which it's a great report, it's good to say, it's great to see all the green, you just can't possibly replicate, or nor would you want to replicate 4 years worth of really line by line detail. So it's a hard one to get right, to say, well, have we set out, did we set the right targets and did we achieve the targets that we set? And essentially that's what you're asking. And I think when we've looked at the quarterly reports, we can say, okay, yeah, well, we said we wanted to deliver X number of affordable housing, and we have. That's not captured here so much because this is such a high level report. And it's always that challenge of getting that balance right between the high level snapshot that you can communicate effectively and that real granular detail that we're all interested in, particularly in our own areas of interest. So, and I know for the next one, we've really thought hard about that. And I know the team is really putting a lot of thought into how you get that balance right so that it's high level enough to give ourselves a bit of flexibility as well, not to kind of, hold on, make ourselves hostages to fortune, but it kind of gives a clear direction of travel. And what in my industry, we always called a theory of change. What are we trying to achieve when push comes to shove? What outputs? It's not what we don't, okay, yes, it's very interesting to know how many emails the comms team have sent out, but what is that actually achieving at the end of the day? And I think that's what I think I'd certainly like to see in the next version. Is more of a kind of what are our ultimate objectives here? And then I say the quarterly reports will then allow us to really sort of dig in, as the chair says, if you've got a specific area of interest, you can really fine tune that. But I'd like to see that more about how
I can do that. Yeah, I did ask questions on 3 of these specific ones, and actually I got very positive response to them. So
okay, thank you, Chair.
Yeah, sorry, Dave, just quickly.
I think there's a danger in terms of this reporting that we do sort of a hokey cokey of we start off very broad and then people say, can we have more details? We'll give more detail, and then we go broad again because people want the big things. So it's difficult to strike a balance. In terms of the how do we know we succeed, I think when we do a review of the 4 years, it would be worth going back to our original corporate plan, because for each of those themes, we said, we did a front sheet that said, why are we doing this? You know, why is this important? What is it we want to achieve? And we took those out of the regular reporting because you can't tell quarter to quarter, and people got sick of being reminded of them. But maybe when we do the looking back over the 4 years, that's the time to bring that forward and say, 4 years ago, we said these things are important, and this is why, and this is what we wanted to achieve under them. And have we, over that 4 years, achieved that? I think that is something I'd be willing to measure on.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay,
Yes. Yeah, so it's a performance report rather than a strategy document. So I think it's very well written. I think it's covers an awful lot from nature recovery, the drainage that and the situation that Tony was alluding to. The data hub, I think that's great to have that link in there so that people can understand how decisions are made. I think that's really good. Climate action, emergency, the amount of money that's being pulled from various sources to actually do things like the solar project, decarbonisation, and so forth. Record homelessness 565, that was a bit of a concern, but the point being there is that actually we're dealing with them very well. I think that was the point there, wasn't it?
Yeah. And it's not, we don't have record homelessness because of any failings
No, that's
in the
right.
service. It's because of
The record
external
homelessness
factors.
is the root cause of that. Must be something. Big cot cycle way delivery, that's brilliant as well. Rag rating, I was thinking rag rating, that sounds really interesting. What does rag rating mean? Just means red, amber, green. Is it can be quite annoying reading these documents sometimes. I'm thinking, oh, why use something like that? You know, why don't you just call it red, amber, green rating?
Everyone's using their
There's
own.
very good reasons for it. A lot of industry uses red, amber, green as well, but it was quite confusing sort of reading that. And I think from a TIC's point of view, when that goes out to the public, that would be it'd be interesting to sort of make those things a bit less opaque. The ratings and the performance, I think, as Moki said, you know, it's very hard to sort of gauge how you've arrived at those, because some of them are statements, and I can't think of anything without reading through the document that's anything very specific. But there are things where somebody's just closed it out as green, and and I just don't know where the evidence is for that. So yeah, I don't. It's very hard with key performance indicators and so forth anyway, unless you're very involved in the data to really understand it. You just have to kind of, as a reader, you have to go and look at it and just go, okay, then I believe you. You know, because that's really all the evidence there is.
I take your point, but I just refer you back to what Andrew was saying about how this is a sort of summary of 4 quarterly reports where there's a bit more data, a bit more detail,
Okay.
and understanding where that is. And if you haven't been on Scrutiny and looked at those before, I'd sort of recommend go to those if you want to just have a scoot through. And then again, there's a bit more under that on the data hub. So there's always, as you said, there's always detail as you go down. More and more data and detail, but obviously I take your point that just looking at this fresh, it may seem that it's the skinny on the top, but actually it is a sort of summary of what's gone.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Councillor Keith Rohan.
Yeah, it's a very good summary of where we've got to. Obviously, I mean, you don't want fine detail about what else we could put into it and all the rest of it at this precise moment, but there are places where it does seem, that there is more to be done. As far as communications go, we always have to keep improving communications because they are never good enough. I mean, whatever we do, we always find somebody's missed the message or whatever, and so that is a work that has to continue to be progressed. I think there's also more to be done in working with communities who very often, as I say, don't really seem to be following our message, but are actually up for some of the things we want to do. So I think, even more efforts to be involved with parishes and things like climate adaptation. There's a lot of willingness out there to help with, environmental projects of various sorts. And it is quite important that we do that, because we do need their help in getting the ones who are still sceptical and opposing on side, and so on and so forth. I'd also like to see reference to the council charter, the Oxfordshire Council's charter in the new version somewhere, because that commits us to working together throughout the system, which is clearly implied in here in many places.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. You don't wish to say anything, Emily?
Oh, I do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, great. These are always sort of historical documents by the time they get here, and they're nice little statements of facts, and a great tool for us to look back and say, well, actually, wasn't it good that we put these things in, because actually we've been able to really make change and make progress in a lot of areas. And as going through the report, there's a lot of things that we've got in here are quite long term. They're aspirational. They would, they're ambitious, and I know that you've been looking at what gets carried forward from this into the next. And do you have? I mean, there's some things you just okay. Yeah, we've done the civil parking. We don't need that one. That's a very, very, very specific things. But it'd be interesting, just a flavour for sort of how. We've talked about the new one being an evolution rather than revolution, so I'm assuming there's quite a lot of this is going to be carrying forward with more, maybe more specific targets and objectives.
Yes, so it's still a work in progress, and a lot of what the consultation responses came back with is has been analysed, but what we are still working through that. As you know, the themes are broadly the same, but as you touched on, getting that balance between specific projects not being hostage to fortune. We know how much things changed in the last 4 or 5 years with regards to governments and grants, etc., and things like that. And then with a new government, we've got to, and I'm very keen that we ensure, and I'll be pushing the team to ensure that we engage with that and ensure that that's really clearly reflected in the council plan, so that we acknowledge it's a new government, a new way of thinking, and how we can, as local government, can engage with that. And of course, the timing is sort of quite good in the sense that we're devising this plan as the new government comes in, but at the same time it's a bit tricky because they haven't quite settled in. So there's those things about thinking about how that works. We know that the local government settlement will almost certainly be different, so we'll be able to maybe plan a bit better. We're hoping that is the case. So all those things will be brought in, but I think those themes are broadly the same. I think taking on board exactly what Tony was saying about weather and climate, and bringing those things in very specific to South Oxfordshire, and how we can maybe work more in partnership with us on flooding, but also other impacts that we have will be an important theme. Talking to communities and working, as Catherine was saying, I think that's key. It's something I'm very keen on, and I concur. I think it's a great idea actually to bring in the council charter. As a handful to that, so thank you for that. But there will be chances for all of us to feed into it through the usual progress.
And I think the team put great effort into making these reports very attractive to look at as well. I think that is important when we're using these as communication tools, and I certainly put links to them wherever I can, because I do think we want to, we put a lot of effort into these. We do want to explain and demonstrate where we've had success and maybe where we've still got work to do. One thing, if somebody's going to be going back and looking at, has it been published, or is it? Yeah. Just, I didn't know who the cabinet member for environment, climate change and nature recovery environment was, because that's a job title that's repeated in many places. So somebody might want to just do a bit of an edit on the document, because that's a real. I'll pass that over to Tim. Yeah. I think there's a few too many environments have ended up in that.
You can never have too much.
Box.
Tim's nodding.
Yeah, Tim's nodding. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll have a look at that. But yeah, you're right. We can't have too much of the environment at all.
Yeah. No, well done, Tim, and well done the whole team for another great report.
Lee.
Yeah, I think this is a great report. I think we've made a lot of good progress in one way. And I think this is a good collection of what we're aiming to do in terms of, I don't know, a belief system or a manifesto or whatever, if how you want to term it. The bit that I wonder if we can't make a step change on now, having got this far down the line, is to do a bit more about it becoming an action plan. And I see an awful lot of, I could pick one, IRF V1, which is about transformation on page 30, well, 42 of the pack, but 30 of this particular thing. And it talks about reporting measure, narrative measure relating to the development of an overarching transformation strategy and any overall narrative linking to potential deliveries. And then goes on to talk about some qualitative data and income relative to net expenditure in context. And this could be broken down by service, which is kind of great as a description of something that you're aiming to do. But in terms of what's the action plan, is it specific, is it measurable, all that good stuff about, will it be, has it got a target date for delivery? That's not there. And actually going through a number of the headings, that's what we've got. We've got narrative in there. And it was important to do that step and to gather together thoughts about where we wanted to go with this. But I think now maybe the next step maybe to start to have a bit of an action plan. An action plan will inevitably be rolling, because I think as somebody said, was it Andrea, about if we've done civil parking enforcement or whatever, yeah, tick, that's one we've done, and we can start to move on to other stuff. But I think it's very important that people can see that there are some specifics behind this, and that we can turn this into an action plan for everybody, for councillors to share, but also for officers to work through, and that we, within those action plans, kind of, because there will be lots of possible shopping lists, won't there, even within an action plan, what the ones that we think are achievable and the highest priorities that we would want to focus on. So that would be my comment.
Sure, yeah, and I think there are two things I'd say to that is one, I'm very keen that we show there's something. When I say we're keeping the same themes, that doesn't mean we're not evolving, we're not showing some change and some progress and some new targets, some challenging new targets. And the second thing is, of course, underneath this you'll have the action plans sitting. So you have the climate net recovery action plan, and you'll have some action plans in relation to comms and finance and things like that. So those action plans will then feed up into the further performance reports. So we don't have zillions of plans and zillions of performance reports, but you're right, we need some specific actions. And I think in the future, for the next council plan, these performance reports will be briefer, but then we'll be referring to the action plans and then the very specific actions on those and the progress on those.
Yeah, so good progress, but more to do as always.
Yeah, I think you make some good points about the action plan with some target dates. But there was one item that I did pick up, which Adrian Duffield did answer, which was HILN, or just one specific one, where every 6 months they were going to check on how many different bedrooms we need in SODC. Is it 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3? How has it changed over the previous 6 months? And I thought that was waste of officers' time doing it every 6 months. I suggested do it every 2 years, because there's hardly any change. There's not going to be much change over. So I think you should look at that one, HILN 10, and either change that to a year or maybe 2 years, because I don't believe, and it just seems, if we're going to cut costs later of £1 million, this may be some way to do it.
Yeah,
so instead of doing these things every 3 months or maybe 6 months or every year to cut officer time.
Yeah,
Officer work on that.
I think you're right. I think it hasn't changed much, has it?
But other than that, I think we should congratulate the staff and the councillors for a great job they're doing. Excellent report. But that's literally what I've got to say. Stephen's taken all our comments down and he's told me in regards to the Barlow. Oh, sorry. James, do you wish to say anything, Councillor Barlow?
Yeah, I'd just like to echo the thanks that everybody's offered. Tim, thank you to you as well for dealing with almost all my questions offline, which everyone's had a copy of, so I won't waste time there on that. Apologies for my typo in one of them, which relates to this amber green on one of the projects, which I know will be, someone will come back to me offline about that, so thank you. And I guess the only thing I'd say in addition, listening to what everybody's offered this evening, is it's really good to hear other members of the committee talking about the importance of climate change adaptation being explicitly included in the themes for our upcoming plan. So thank you for that.
Okay, thank you, James. Okay, we'll move on to item 9, which was the budget setting for 25-26. We had a presentation earlier on this from Simon. Basically, would anybody like to comment? Otherwise, we're asked to note the contents of the report. So I'm going to start with Lee and go around this way. There you go. I knew your time would come.
Well, I mean, I think
Thank you very much. Thank you, Sam. And Daniel.
actually, I think the main points we covered earlier, really. So I didn't really have a lot to say about the budget setting stuff. I was interested to see if we would have a base budget tonight. It's running slightly late, so we're not quite there. That was a target of the 15th of September per the report, but they're not quite there yet. And the other points I think we discussed earlier, so I don't have anything particular to say about budget setting.
So I didn't ask Simon to speak first, but
Yes, you probably
you wish to speak? Do you want to go first?
To say anything first?
Yeah, go on, Simon. Sorry. You're going first, Dave.
Yeah, I think I'm going first. Very quickly,
Yeah.
we're at the technical phase of the budget. So this is the sort of groundwork of setting up the spreadsheets and knowing where we are. We will in time come to the political part of the budget, which is where we make decisions about what we're going to spend. And we talked about growth bids and wish lists and things. The reason why we don't expect to see many of those is because we have a plan. We have a corporate plan which has lots of wish lists in it, and we're not delivering nearly enough of it yet. So if we have spare money, then the place I would expect officers to look first is the corporate plan and see what is it that they would want to bring forward next. But there will be an opportunity because we need to be at least a little bit flexible, that there will be opportunistic things that will come up. There will be things that we think of. So there will be an opportunity for all councillors to feed into that at some stage. But I would expect most of the budget to be funding our ongoing procedures. Where there is additional money, it will have already been identified within the corporate plan how we would like to spend that. And if there's anything beyond that, then that's the nice shiny things on top, and that would be the ones that everybody points at and says, even though it'll be a tiny percentage of the budget.
Simon, do you wish to add anything you said earlier?
No, I'll just perhaps briefly summarise what I went through earlier. I mean, this is the first thing to say is this is the first time we've brought a scene setting report like this to this committee and also to cabinet at this stage of the year. So I hope it's helpful, and it's been enabled by the additional support we've got in the team. The report outlines, as David said, the timetable, as he says, we're in very much the technical stage of budget setting at the moment, and it's underway. I think on revenue, I'd just reiterate that the report identifies that we expect some challenges, but the extent of those challenges is unclear, and one of the large reasons for that is we still don't know what future local government funding will be from the new government. Those challenges, as identified in the report, might increase in future years, but I think one of the things I hope that the committees appreciates, if you like, is the sheer number of levers and moving parts in the budget that we'll have to grapple with over the next few months. On capital, we're looking at repeating the work of previous year in making sure that our profiling is accurate and that we can better understand the capital funding required and the profiling of that. That's all I wanted to say, really.
Anna, do you wish to add anything?
Not at this stage, thank you.
But thank you. Lee, I'll go back to you again.
You were done, I think.
I'm done.
Sure.
Don't give them the opportunity.
Don't see my second name, obviously.
Yeah, no, I think it was very helpful to have the briefing earlier, because a couple of the questions I was going to ask about like non-cabinet involvement in the discussions, I think that was answered there. That was that's great. And I would like to thank you and note particularly for, because this is a scrutiny committee, and I think the transparency with which we are being presented this information, and the information we're all hearing, really for me contrasts with how things might have been done in the past, and how we see other councils who have tripped up over in financial areas. What some of the criticisms that have been of them has been that lack of transparency and poor governance. So I think we're demonstrating that we are showing good governance and making sure that that we're kind of checking and challenging at every stage of the game. So it's great to have this opportunity. Thank you, Simon, and yeah, good luck with getting us to an acceptable number.
Councillor Keats-Ryan.
Oh, yes, again, thank you very much. All work, it has been helpful to see. Can't really add anything else that, what everyone else has said.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Sadler.
Yeah, I was wondering about the forecasting for the contracts that are coming to the end in 26, because then we've got a few contracts coming to the end there, and I noticed it in the report. It talks about that not being a risk. I just wonder whether is it not a risk?
That was part of the presentation, but can you just?
Oh, sorry.
Can you just respond to that? Simon, can you just respond to that, please?
Yeah, I can comment on that. I mean, clearly, we're not.
Sorry.
That's all right. I think clearly it's very difficult to project what the future will be for these things. I mean, we have an idea under the 5 councils contract what the number will be going forward for the extension. Because we've had decisions taken around that. We haven't got decisions taken around the other contract that expires in 25-26, which is the car parking contract. I think some of the other contracts, or the contracts that are coming to an end, if we're able to firm up or have a better idea of what the impacts of those will be in future years, we can estimate them. But as it stands at the moment, we don't have any numbers in front of us to put in the budget for those figures. So it's clearly a risk. And it's flagged as such, it's flagged in the budget report as a risk that, those whilst we don't make estimates, clearly they could go up as well as down in future. But we can't necessarily put a number on them, and that's all we can do.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Anything on?
No problem, Chair.
Okay. No.
Nothing, Chair.
No. Okay. Okay. Thanks for your. Oh yeah, Councillor Barlow. That's a good point. James.
Hello,
Anna,
thank you.
Hold on just a second. Anna, did you respond to James's questions?
I haven't been able to get answers to all of the questions yet, and I haven't sent any back. So I thought we might capture some that we can now, and the rest we will respond to in writing, if that's okay, Chair.
Okay, so James, what we can't answer now, we'll send you a response in a couple of days. Is that okay?
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah, and I appreciate that.
It will have to be.
Other
Other than that, can you make some comments on the report, please?
Yeah, I just want to say that the briefing earlier was very helpful. One of my key questions was around the £1 million savings challenge in the context of the variability of actual spends and revenue and incomes compared to the forecast. And it was just really helpful hearing what you were saying about that. What was it you said? I can't remember now. Basically, I was reassured by the way you put it, that it wasn't just going out for savings, but it was looking at actually the way in which we'd forecasted and was it accurate enough. So thank you for that. That was really helpful. And I think what David Rowan's just said as well about any spare money quote, that we can use in terms of investments in the corporate plan as well after we've gone for the initial services. So that's really helpful context. Thank you. And I welcome the opportunity to talk about these things at this stage. And similarly, on that vein, I think The questions I had about the reserves, I'm imagining that the way we go through that over this period of time, we get the opportunity to have the visibility on that. So thank you. The one thing I just want to add to all of that is I found it really helpful when it was explained that the climate impact tool wasn't very helpful at this level, and we heard the same thing about the JLP as well. So it gives me a question which we might all want to think about, and I know it's not an easy question to answer, but I think it's a question that I'm sure is foremost in many of our minds: is how do we incorporate, you know, our declaration of a climate and ecological emergency into our governance at this level? As far as it's possible, and it may be it's very qualitative, and it may be those conversations happen between the senior leadership team and the cabinet anyway, but I just wanted to raise our awareness of that as well. That was all I wanted to add, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the presentation earlier, Simon. Obviously worked well with Lee, but I'm sure he'll make up for it on the next item. So thanks for that. Yeah, the committee were just asked to note the contents of the report, so we'll note that and move on to item 10, which is the financial outturn report. So are you going to speak to that, David, first, or
if I do some big picture stuff, and I will lean heavily on Anna for any details of particular understanding for in table 1 tells you where we are in terms of the finances against the budget, and yeah, on the face of it, we're £5.3 million better off, but there are good and bad reasons why you might have an underspend. So there are underspends because we did things better than we thought we were going to do, and it saved money, and those are good things. There are underspends because we didn't get round to doing what we were supposed to do, and that's a bad thing. And there's also the technical underspend, which is this unique way that the government insists that that CIPFA insists that local authorities budget, which is that you at the beginning of a project slap all the money in the budget, even though you're not going to spend it for the next 2 or 3 years. So you really do have to drill down on each of these underspends or each of these bracketed figures that say that's a good thing. The one, I guess, unqualified good thing is the investment income, which has been our get out of jail free card for a few years now, and it will come to an end at some point. That's kind of big picture. Just to show off that I read the detail of it, on paragraph 7, where it says there's a table and it says underspends carried forward to 23-24. That should be to 24-25. So you have an underspend and then you add back the ones that are being carried forward to the next year to tell you what the real underspend is. But I'll stop there, and if Anna wants to pull out any details or just take questions. Anna?
While we're pointing out mistakes, if I may, also on paragraph 24, it talks about a comparison of 21-22 with 22-23. The table is correct where it's a comparison with 22-23 and 23-24. So apologies for that error as well. I don't propose to talk through the report. I'm very happy to take any questions, unless you would like me to pull out any key highlights. Happy to do so.
I think that will come as we go around the table.
Yeah.
Lee.
So the first thing to say, I think for a long time we've been talking about the timeliness of these reports, going back to David Turner and ever on since, and we had stuff with catheter and we had to bring back the functions, and we had to get a new system, and we had to get some improved staffing, and all of that's being done. I would like us to set some targets for getting slightly faster reporting going forward. So I understand all the reasons in this year and everything that's led up to it, but I would like to see some targets set for turning the reports around a bit faster. You will have heard me raise this question before, Simon, but to me, I have a problem with the variance signage in all of these reports, because it seems to me that the universal convention is that if it's positive and it's black, it's good, and if it's negative and it's red, it's bad. And in these reports, it's the exact reverse way around. Now, you know, for those of us who are fairly fluent in debits and credits, some of us don't care. But bearing in mind that these reports are for ordinary councillors who may have no love of accountancy or numbers even very much, keeping it as simple as possible and keeping it within the general convention, I think would be better. I don't know what it would take to change that, but for me, I find that strange. There is a reference on page 54, paragraph 21, to policy and programmes about a cancelled project, but it doesn't specify what the cancelled project was. What was it, please?
I'm going to show off because I asked Anna this afternoon. It's to do with Abbey Sports in Berensfield. There was money set aside for a particular piece of work, which got superseded by other work, and so that project itself was cancelled.
Okay.
Is that slippage?
No, I think it was replaced by another project, wasn't it, Anna?
It's gone back into reserves for a potential bid to undertake a new project. Yeah.
Okay, fine. Obviously, the NNDR is very encouraging. The overall thing is obviously better for our closing reserves. When I was getting to the back end, I came across a simpler approach pilot program. And forgive me, I don't know what that is. I wasn't sure what that was about, and it wasn't something that somehow has missed me.
Which page now?
Which paragraph is
It's way back. Let me just see. Down the back end, agenda the
Page 59, the first PMO.
yeah, exactly so.
Oh, on the carry forwards table.
Yeah.
Which item is that?
That's
I just didn't know
neighbourhood.
what's.
It's in neighbourhood planning, so it's grant funding for a
Oh,
neighbourhood
I've got
planning
it now.
pilot.
Yes, I have heard of it. Sorry, thank you. Okay. And I was also interested to understand what it specifically is in our commercialisation budget.
Which page?
The same page, further down.
3 from the bottom. That's the as part of the transformation budget that's been carried forward, specifically an element set aside for commercial. Put my teeth in.
Commercialisation.
Yeah.
I just wondered what specific things that meant, if it meant something specific.
I don't believe there are any specifics at the moment, and it's for the ability for the transformation team.
Understood, to generate revenue, etc. Yeah, okay, yes, that's great. So those
Can I
were
just
my,
caveat that, Lee, just for a couple of things? I mean, obviously, we can't be as commercial as we might have been when that budget was created. So we might need to think about the title of that, because clearly there's a limit on our commercial ambition. And I think just to reiterate what Anna said, I mean, I think in reality it would be potentially used by the transformation team for some and I'll go get my teeth in now, some south specific projects that they might work on, right, whereas the other transformation budget is generally for, you know, stuff that's shared across with Vale.
yeah, but in general we're looking to invest to generate income or savings. Okay, no, thank you. As to the variance, the convention on variances, is there any scope to change that?
I probably just answered that, and also your question on timeliness. I mean, clearly they are things that now we've got a full team, we can take those away and comment on. I mean, I think the other thing I'd say, almost linking back to David's point at the very start about the need to drill into the detail on the carry forwards, I think that's another area of presentation we could look at that might make things a bit easier. I think it would almost be worth trying to show, if you like, the performance against the budget that was set, and then the performance against the sort of carry forwards and grant funded stuff as separate items. But you know, we'll take that away for future pondering.
Okay, thank you.
Just say on conventions, as soon as you change it, somebody else will come along and complain that you're not using the previous convention.
Well, we don't wish to change for the sake of change. Should we leave it like that? If change is going to improve, let's change. If it's not going to improve, let's leave it as.
My argument is make it as
Convention is
simple as
a-
possible
Yeah.
for ordinary councillors.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Well, I'm going on to the ordinary councillor next.
Ordinary.
Extra.
Okay, yeah, great, thank you. Just a couple. The planning income that was under budget in paragraph 20. I know we've had a lot of change in planning, haven't we? We have done some transformation in planning. Are we seeing the benefits of that, or are they being masked by kind of by lower income levels because of just fewer applications? So we were hoping for quite significant savings through the transformation programme and planning. This question, are we seeing those, and are they being hidden somehow?
Yes. So the planning income obviously was less than we anticipated due to less applications, etc. The staffing budget actually had a saving in planning. So yes, I think overall it is slightly being hidden, but we do try and pull that out in the report to say that staffing did show an underspend, but the reason.
Great, thank you. And just given the current consultation on the potential changes to planning fees, application fees, and this links to the budget earlier paper actually, are you looking at making any different assumptions for next year for fees?
Increased fees.
Increased fees.
Well, increase this year.
Yeah, and they're talking about increase
Going at game.
quite a big increase. So are we just waiting to see on that one rather than making any assumptions? I know this isn't for the outturn, this is really for next year more than outturn.
No, that's fine. We can capture it here, not a problem. I did ask Adrian for a response on this as head of planning, and he said the government have recently consulted on increasing national planning fees, but we don't yet know by how much or if and when it be agreed. So it's really difficult to say what the impact might be on our income budget. He did say the government policy about house building needs to be reflected in our plan making, a joint local plan, but the joint local plan proposes no additional housing growth other than that already planned for in our adopted plan. So the government policy at this stage is unlikely to impact on our future fee income.
Okay.
David, I'm going to go to James after you.
And the big impact on our fee income is stability in the market. That means that developers bring forward planning applications. Our planning applications or our housing development is in large sites, which we know have not come forward because of various instabilities. That's the big impact on our planning income rather than the actual fees that we charge, because I can't imagine they're going to change massively. Just bring James in because he needs to go at 7:15.
Oh, yeah.
And then I'll come back to you, Andrew. James.
Thank you very much, Chair. Again, hopefully my questions I sent across before we can deal with offline, unless there's anything particularly, Anna or Simon, you think would be helpful for everybody to hear who wasn't copied.
I think we can deal with them offline, James, and we'll circulate the answers to all.
Brilliant. Okay, just in the interest of timeliness, the one thing I just bringing back, Ken, for you and for Stephen, was the question I had about, given our previous looks at treasury management before, whether and potential differences in what we might want to do compared to Vale, whether it makes sense for us to have the opportunity to look at the treasury management outturn report independently of the joint audit and governance. I know that's a different kind of question, but I just wanted that noted, and whether anybody in the room had any views on that now.
I can offer a response which explains the current situation, if that would be helpful.
Yeah, will be. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so basically the Treasury, as it stands at the moment, the Treasury Management Outturn Report is not a scrutiny matter because Council have previously confirmed that Joint Audit and Governance Committee is the body responsible for ensuring effective review of the Treasury management strategy and policies, and as such it's core to the function of that committee. Although Joint Audit and Governance Committee is a joint committee, when Treasury management matters are considered by that committee, council specific votes are taken on all items, so only South members consider South reports.
Okay.
The strategy reports themselves are council specific, and whilst the mid-year and out-turn reports are presented as joint reports, the detail is broken down by council with specific appendices reflecting individual council performance. And finally on that, I'd probably say that, you know, in terms of scrutiny responsibilities and joint audit and governance committee responsibilities, what we do is in line with sort of national best practice, is what most councils I know follow. So it's not an outlier, it's within what councils tend to do for these areas.
Okay, as in Simon, in other places it will go to the audit and governance committee rather than scrutiny. Forget the joint bit.
That's
Okay.
correct.
And just to confirm, as chair, as co-chair of JAG, that's what happens when we talk about specific accounts, treasury outturn. It's done on specific council, and we vote separately as well.
Great, thank you. It's very clear.
Anything else, James?
No, that was it. Thank you very much.
Okay, off you go now.
Well, I'll wait for a few minutes. I want to hear
Oh,
what
okay.
you've got to say. Thank you.
You did say 7:15. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot for coming online though, James. Thank you.
Thank you very much for bearing with me.
No problem.
Thanks.
Andrew, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. There was one project that kind of jumped out to me only because I know there's been some issues locally in Wheatley, but it led me to sort of question and look into some of the bigger picture. And this is the Wheatley flood alleviation scheme, which was delayed. There was some slippage in there. And I'm just thinking what you said there earlier, David, about the way we have to assign capital budget. So we have to put kind of an envelope, a pot of money into a capital budget, even if we're not going to spend it for another couple of years. So the question for me is what's the difference between slippage and carry forward? You know, where are we genuinely slipping with projects, and therefore we should be, you know, tightening up and or questioning, are we going about these projects in the right way to make sure they're delivered on time? And you know, because I know the local councils have had a right old ear bashing because of the certainly perceived slippage in that project. And where is it that it's just an accounting kind of idiosyncrasy that again would help us to explain to our constituents, okay, well, yes, we've got a budget for this, but you're not actually going to see anything happen for another 3 years.
We tend to use terminology of slippage with a capital programme that will span more than 1 year. So we'll have a project that we know will take maybe 2 or 3 years. So we'll set a total budget for that period, and then we'll talk about slippage if it's going to change years slightly. We will always try to profile that budget across that period, but it can change, you know, with any big construction project, for instance. You know, there's a lot of things that can make a difference to it. And then we talk about carry forwards as a revenue terminology, because we will have a pot of money that sits in revenue, and because revenue accounting is very different to capital accounting, it has to sit in the revenue and get carried forward each year, so it kind of gets transferred into reserves and back out again. Does that help?
Right. Yeah, so actually, so carry forward and slippage are quite different in that sense, in that the way you interpret them, and that one is a revenue treatment and one is very much capital. So going back to the slippage in the capital, why are we slipping? I mean, are there fundamental issues with our contracting or our procurement? I mean, because what we do seem to be slipping a lot. The list of slippage is long.
Yes, I think as Simon alluded to in part of the presentation earlier, in that capital has kind of taken a bit of a back seat, and we're starting now to do that capital challenge process. So that was done last year. So that's why we saw a significant amount of capital slippage, because we actually started to delve right into the detail, and we're continuing that work into this year. So we're looking at the schemes even more. The capital programme has grown. I'm quite new to the councils, but I believe it's grown quite considerably. So needs that more detailed look at it, which myself and my team are working alongside the heads of service and project managers to do that. So I think we've seen a significant amount of slippage because we've started to make headway into into that piece of work. So I would hope that we're getting a better handle on it. There will always be slippage just because of the nature of construction projects and issues with delays due to planning or architects' plans, or all sorts of things that feed into a big construction project. But I do hope we will see less going forward.
Thanks, that's very helpful, Anna. Thank you.
David.
Yeah, there will be different reasons, and it's worth examining what the reasons are for each of them. But for example, NPR3 is down. We've got £6.2 million that we set aside. I have a book that was produced in 1998 that has NPR3 on it. But the county council is responsible for delivering that project. We're hanging on to the funds until they're ready to deliver the project. They've been waiting to deliver the project since 1998, at least, probably before that. So that is 6.2 out of the 15 million carry forward is that one project. So it's worth going down the list. There will be some, and if there was a pattern arising, then it would be worrying. But the big ones in there, I think, are things like the housing projects, because we set aside money for affordable housing or for our housing delivery strategy, and then we got some more funding from the government specifically for that. So that project, the project that was coming out of our own money, got pushed back because we needed to spend the government money first. So there are reasons for all of the big ones, but if it was something that there was a pattern through all things, then I'd be worried.
You're not worried, I'm not worried, David.
Yeah, I'm constantly worried. Councillor Keats Brohan.
Yeah, I'm an ordinary councillor, so I make that clear. Can I just have some clarification on the two Wallingfords entries here? Changing places Wallingford Tackle Market, it says project to carry forward into 24-25. That's being done as far as I know, but the refurb of the cemetery, which people are getting more and more vociferous about, hasn't started. And that's also done to carry forward 2024. What does this mean in terms of what I can tell people who are getting very cross about the cemetery parts? I mean, is anything going to happen anytime soon? I know there's a contractor has been identified.
So which item are you talking about?
I'm talking about A405. When we were looking at the flood alleviation.
What page
above,
what
60.
60, okay.
I'll have to take those two specific questions away, I'm afraid, and come back to you with a written answer. I'll need to talk to the project manager about what the delays.
Thank you very much.
So that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. But it's supposed to say the same thing.
Yeah.
I've got nothing on this one, Chair. I'm a mere ordinary councillor. I couldn't possibly understand you.
Can we get some new name tags made up? This is like almost like the Amber Club. You're either ordinary or full.
I brought Simon a T-shirt that someone gave me, but he's not here, so he can't have it. But it says "Keep calm and let the finance director deal with it."
Moggy.
No comments, Chair.
Well, the main thing I was going to comment on has already been done quite well, and that's the tardiness of delivering some of the capital projects. I mean, I'm fine with the revenue side of the budget, but it is frustrating when we know that money has been approved for the projects not to go ahead. Some things are fairly obvious, like the one at Wallingford. It was the weather, the riverside. You can explain that, but that really doesn't affect the cemetery wall.
Is this going to go to cabinet, Dave?
Yes, it does. We get a regular report.
I think some of these projects that haven't been completed, if we could just have a one paragraph report on those, from the cabinet agenda. Yeah.
I didn't make that up, did I, Simon? This will be coming to.
No, the report itself doesn't go to cabinet, it just comes to scrutiny, but we can follow up those queries. I mean, I'm very conscious.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I'm conscious that, it harks back to Lee's point. There will be schemes that are listed as not completed because this report is written as at the 31st of March, that have now completed, and it might be worth us actually circulating to the committee an update on, you know, which of those schemes have been completed since, and you know, if there's major delays with any of the other schemes, I think that'd be helpful to report, and we could report that back through this committee.
Yeah, we appreciate that. Thank you. Councillor Morgan.
I think just building on a couple of other points, it would be quite helpful in here just to have any kind of indication if we're not going to spend it in 24-25 either. So if actually there are very good reasons why we're not, you know, it's carried forward to 24-25, but we don't expect to deliver it in 24-25, knowing that it's going to be a 25-26 or 26-27, that would be really quite helpful as an indication.
Yeah.
And I appreciate some of that won't be known, but where we do know it, that will be helpful.
David.
I think Anna mentioned the fact that within the finance team, they do have a schedule that gives a profiling of capital expenditure. It's just not one of the ones that's included in the report. So yeah, that information is available. It's just not in the report.
I think it's the way it's expressed here. It says project to carry forward in 2024-25, but it might be 25-26, might be 26-27, but looks like that's a catch-all, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Leon, going back to you.
And we
Sorry.
are, sorry, sorry.
No, go on.
And we are, as I mentioned, we are going through the capital review process as part of the budget setting. So we will be picking up any schemes that need to slip even further. So we will have, as part of Q2 and so the budget setting process, we'll have a better picture of where the capital spend is expected to sit.
Can I also just chip in, actually knowing that Scrutiny Committee are very interested in knowing how those schemes are progressing will be very helpful to share in those meetings we have with managers.
Yes, thank you. Leon, I'm going to go back to you.
Just a couple of points of reflection, Chair. Firstly, when there is slippage of substantial schemes and there is inflation, there is obviously an issue there, because when you come to spend it, you may not get quite as much as you hoped for when you first put the project together. And in terms of trying to change the score as well as keeping the score, you know, maybe there needs to be a bit more reflection there about things like S106 and so on. If the delay is down to us, it's probably not possible to nail it on the developer to that extent. But if there are intrinsic things in that particular development or which are not our fault effectively, then it is reasonable to have something in there that says that if that happens, the extra cost that might arise is down to them. I don't know how deliverable that is, but if it is deliverable, it might actually be worth quite a lot of money.
One more response, yeah.
Yeah, Lee and I are old enough to remember the old days of inflation, so we think about these things, but it seems to have dropped off the syllabus, shall we say. NPR3 is a really good example of that, in that it was fully funded. In my head, NPR3 has always been fully funded with the £6.2 million. When we had the SIL application from OCC last year, they asked for money towards NPR3 because it's got the price of it's gone up and the grant is no longer enough.
Right, we are asked on the recommendation to note the overall outturn position of the council as well as the outturn of the individual service areas. I'm going to add to that, also add comments as appropriate. There's numerous comments been made today, which Stephen has written down. Do you need to read them back or no? You don't. No. Okay. So you may. Well, yeah, I'll look at the draft minutes anyway. Just to make sure they're all in there. Other than that, can we all accept that recommendation?
Yep.
Okay.
Note and say congratulate, 'cause that's been, but you know, thank and you know, welcome. That's the word. Welcome the outturn rather than just noting. Notes a bit.
Right, Simon and Anna, can I thank you both for giving your reports this evening? Thank you very much. Thank you, committee, and also thank Tim if Tim's still there. If not, you can pass on my thanks to him as well. As there's no other business, I now close the meeting. Thank you all.
Thank you, Chair.